What's going on, everybody? Welcome to yet another episode on KoBMC Photography's channel. This time we're going to be talking about light and dark and the effects of ISO. And once again, shooting at high ISO, is it really that big of a deal? This is going to be more specifically about the PENTAX K-3 III. Now, I'm not going to get into the whole, oh, it's an ISO invariant sensor or it's not an ISO invariant sensor. I'm not going to get into any of that. Basically, what I'm going to be showcasing is the capability of this camera shooting at very high ISO. As you can tell, the exposures will be different, right? Light and dark. Now, some things that you need to keep in mind is when you're shooting in certain situations where there isn't enough light, you don't have that many choices. You can either decrease your shutter speed. However, if you are trying to combat your hand shaking, or you're trying to capture something that's moving and you need a higher shutter speed, then the only other options you have is to drop your aperture. In my case would be f2.8 is the most open aperture I could use. And if that's not enough, then the only other option you have is to increase your ISO. So where do you put the ceiling? 1600, 800? Some people say that they don't want to shoot anything, of course. They don't want to shoot anything other than, any higher than 1600 ISO or maybe 800 ISO because, they're from the old school where, grain will be everywhere. But you need to keep in mind with a digital sensor, it just needs photons. That's it. So even if there are very, very minimal photons, it's still enough to be able to get a clean, good image. The problem that arises is when you're shooting something that may be brighter than the surrounding area, then the darkness of the surrounding area, as you increase the exposure in post, you will get more grain, right? Because there just are no photons. Black is just jet black, that's it. So here's a showcase of 6400 ISO, 1600 ISO, 12,800 ISO, everything from wildlife birding to urban exploration / street photography and super high ISO shooting. So if you had any doubts before, this should put that whole thing to rest. One thing I do want to mention is that I have not applied any noise reduction in any of the images that I showed in this video. And members, if you want to pixel peep and analyze it and all that stuff, I will upload the RAWs exclusively for the members of the channel. Thank you again for subscribing as a member to the channel. Very much appreciated. Now back to the regularly scheduled video outro. So there you go, shooting at super high ISO in very dark conditions in the middle of the night. under bridges, doing some urban exploration, all that fun stuff. You don't have to worry about it. It doesn't matter what other people told you. It's perfectly fine, at least on the K3 Mark III from Pentax. On my K3, I think the highest I would go is 6400 ISO. On my K30, the highest I would go was actually 12,800, which is the same ceiling I have put on my Pentax K3 Mark III. And as you can see from the images, it does a blisteringly great job at brilliantly transposing the images, and I forget the scientific elements of all this. Basically, all I'm getting to is don't worry so much about the ceiling. It's all about the actual exposure. As long as, well, the exposure and the ambience of the light around you. If there's no photons, it doesn't matter what settings you use. It's just not going to work. If there's even the slightest smidgen hint of light, then you'll be all right. And that's all I'm going to say. If you like the video, leave a like. If you haven't already, please do subscribe. Always helps out. All that stuff. If you want to support the channel, that info's at the bottom of the description. And yeah, I'm going to go. I'll see you in the next video. I'm out.